So next I want to get into the method I used. So in the beginning, like I said, I knew 3 years ago that my certification was going to expire this year. So time you get that certification, when it expires. So, but as with everything, we put it on our bucket list or our to-do list and never get around to doing it. So eventually that date for my certification to expire had basically snuck up on me, where I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of this and try to, build up towards it. But sometimes the plan don't go as scheduled. So like I said, the renewal, basically it snuck up on me due to just being busy. It seems like the older I get, the more busier I am, where basically I remember in my younger days, the only thing I was concerned with was getting out of school or leaving my job or getting off work for that day, coming home, playing PlayStation. But now it's like, you get through your job, if you want to stay in some kind of shape, you go work out. That takes up an hour or so. Then let's say that if there's something you're trying to obtain, then you devote a little bit of time to that. And before you know it, it's time to lay down and get ready for the next day. So this renewal kind of snuck up on me due to me having a somewhat busy schedule. So in the beginning, like I said, I started out planning to use the CE credits. I think I got roughly up to about halfway. So I still have about 14, 15 CE credits. And basically, I got those CE credits from watching the Cisco spotlights. So they had a spotlight session maybe a month or two ago. But with this spotlight session, basically you could go in even after the spotlight was done. So you didn't have to be on there live, but you can go in afterwards and watch those videos. And while watching those videos, basically you're learning about some newer technologies, learning about things that may be coming down the pipeline, things that you may not be aware of. Then basically while you're watching these spotlights, it gave you some questions to answer. You answer the questions right. It considered that, you finished the spotlight or you had to be in there for a certain amount of time. So I got a lot of these CE credits from watching those spotlights. And then also I enrolled in a couple of free classes I saw on Cisco U that gave you some credits for passing. So a lot of times, one thing to note about this is a lot of times they will do some free classes that gives a lot of CE credits. So for me, I've been missing out for a while because, like I said, I think in my inbox, it may have been coming to my spam or something like that. So I wasn't really checking it. And then when it came time to renew my certification, I just so happened to see the Rev Up the Research, which I did a video on, and that kind of piqued my interest. So knowing that now I can better prepare moving forward. So like I said, they give out a lot of these classes free that will give you a lot of CE credits. And then also there is a paid monthly feature. So if you want to get some other courses that may not be available, but like I said, just keep a check on the Cisco U website, see what kind of free classes they have available, and see if you can use that along with some other things to get up your CE credits. So then while I knew that my certification was about to expire, like I said, I was trying to go the route of getting these CE credits, but like I said, I wasn't able to stick to my plan where in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit every day, get these CE credits. Basically, I was falling behind on my plan, and I knew that June and July was going to be a busy month for me. So I knew that, okay, well, I knew also that I was going to Cisco Live. So once we figured out, okay, I'm going to Cisco Live, and from registration, a lot of times depend on your registration fee or whatever, but you get a free certification exam. So you get to take a free one while you're over there. So roughly, I was like, okay, I'm looking at the CCNA material almost every day. So that has to pertain to my job. So I was like, well, I'm gonna go over here and just take the free exam and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, then I can continue on with the CE credits. I got roughly a month before it do expire, so I can go look at that, or either I could just take the certification again. So basically, knowing that I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, I went to the trusty, I'm always a big proponent for Boson, especially when it comes to CCNA. That's all I used whenever I got my CCNA. Besides the very first time when I was a student, every time after that, I've always used Boson. So someone tagged Boson, let them know that, hey, I'm available. We need to do collaboration or something. But basically, I went to old Boson, And I bought the exam sim, which basically, like I said, it gives you the practice exams. Roughly, it give you about 4 or 5 banks. What I like about these practice exams is that usually when you're doing a practice exam, you go through it as a regular exam where, you want to see what you score. You sit through it just like you're taking a certification. You get your results. It shows you the percentages that you got in each category. So from the exam topics, you look at the Cisco exam topics, they have the topics and categories. Then in each category, you have each individual technologies or things you need to learn. But basically, they give you this in the result. Then you can go back, take that same exam where it shows you the answers. So when you go and you're taking this exam sim, you're taking the portion where it shows you the answers. Basically, you can look at it. If you got the answer wrong, it'll come up and show you what is the right answer. Then also it shows you why the other answers weren't correct. And usually it gives you a link that goes to either some white papers or somewhere where you can read up more on it, or either it'll let you know the chapter in the book to go to. So using this, like I said, I started going over that a couple of times. Like I said, I didn't go over the whole lot. I would say I roughly bought it like the week before we was going to leave and go to Cisco Live. So like I said, that been a hectic week also, but I did get a chance to look over it probably about 2 or 3 times, took a couple of notes. So then, once we went to Cisco Live, and I think I scheduled my exam for that Tuesday. So that was the second day. So the second day, roughly, I went and took my exam. And like I said, after taking the exam, it didn't give me my results right away. And roughly, I found out later on that afternoon, or basically that night, once I got back to my room, was that I had passed the exam. So like I said, that was a load off my back. I got past the exam. So now that's off my back for 3 years. Now I can focus on what's next on the list. And like you hear me say before, Iron Linux Plus. Like I said, I want to kind of hone my skill set, get more well-rounded. I think I'm pretty good with the networking, at least up to the CCNA level. So I think I can start adding some components to it, which is something that, I never really got around to, even though I done been in tech now. If you count the years of instructing, I would say I done been in there about 15, 16 years now. So, but basically, I went from always having the CCNA knowledge from school, but the realms I worked in was more general. I went to help desk, which was general, went to desktop, which was a little bit more honed in, more specific, but still basically kind of general overall. You had to know a little bit of everything, application plus networking. And then I went to networking, which is where, that was where my skill set was more suited. So like I said, just now I think I'm able to venture out to some of the newer technologies. Like I said, I've always been interested in Linux, which Linux is not a new technology, but you get what I'm saying. So venture out to a little bit of Linux and maybe a little bit of cloud, to kind of get more way around it. So I think that's going to be next on my list. But like I said, I was able to pass it doing Cisco Live, which now that took a load off my back, because now I got 3 years till it's time to do it again. And being that I already got 14 CEU credits, I'm probably going to do a couple courses through that just to already have those in the bag for renewing my certification.